Hello and welcome to post-match reaction to the Hurricanes versus the Sunwolves. It finished 48. No, it didn't. It finished 43-15 to the Sunwolves after a long period of dominance 43-15 to the Hurricanes. Obviously, I'm all over the place tonight. I was like, what a mess. And also after a long period of dominance by the Sunwolves in that second half. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a podcast, YouTube channel, Twitter account, and website bringing the best in rugby opinion and whatever's. Predictions. That's what I do. I do lots of predictions. Anyway, joining me this evening and going to keep me on the straight and narrow is Shane. How are you doing, sir?
Good, thanks, Paul. How are you, mate?
Clearly all over the place. I feel fine, but I just don't seem to be able to put two words together, at least correct ones. So it finished with the try bonus point for the Hurricanes and blew out to a nearly 28. Is it 28? I think it's like that. 28-point lead in the end there, but it looked like it was going to be a closer margin than that, even if the Hurricanes were going to win all along.
I think it was a gutsy effort by the Sunwolves tonight, Paul. They really got stuck in. And I think they played their best rugby for the Super Rugby season so far tonight.
They had a good ground. Their problem, and I tweeted this in the first half, was penetration. And one of the stats I'm going to pull out here, and it's even more explicit now than it was when I tweeted it. But the Hurricanes made 101 runs. The Sunwolves made 124 runs, so slightly more runs, and yet the Hurricanes made 602 meters with ball in hand to the Sunwolves 289. And this wasn't just that's not a difference that's down to kick returns. That's a difference that's down to penetration. And the Sunwolves just struggled with penetration tonight, didn't they?
Absolutely. And to be honest, the scoreline probably flattered both sides a little bit because of some disallowed tries to Vince Arso. Also, the fact that the Hurricanes went wide when they had the ball and wanted to play a real running game with their backs, it certainly meant that the Sunwolves had to do was certainly in trouble when the Hurricanes went into attack, that's for sure. And the penetration issue is certainly illustrated in the stats you've just mentioned.
Yeah, and not only that, but also if we look at the number of, when you're talking about that number of passes, again, 112 passes for 101 runs by the Hurricanes, 99 passes for 124 runs by the Sunwolves. So more runs, less passes, which shows you the Sunwolves kept it much tighter. And as you said, the Hurricanes more than happy to spin it wide for their wingers. And partially that was down to, and until the substitution, at least by the Sunwolves, there was a big size difference. In fact, should I say, substitutions by both sides. Obviously, Nick Scudder coming on isn't the biggest winger in the world, is he, by any stretch? But Ben Lamb and Julian Surveyor definitely had a size advantage over their opponents, and so they were always going to bust the line, big guy against little guy. Yeah,
and I think you saw that particularly in the last 10 minutes when the dam wall burst, and certainly you saw the Sunwolves tire and Sevilla and Vince Arso and the big fellas getting the ball out there wide and running at the line. The Hurricanes that was their game plan, and it worked in the end, and then they got the 5 points because of the tactics they used.
So early doors, as you said, disallowed tries became a big part of this, and clearly and refereeing is something we will have to talk about in this one. But first try disallowed on 2 minutes because of a forward pass. I think we all saw it. The commentators saw it, but the referee missed it, let it go on, and thankfully the TMO caught that one. That's the correct decision there, sure, wasn't it, to stop that, to disallow that try?
Yeah, I think if you ask the Hurricanes player, he would have disagreed. But I think I think the TMO actually did a really good job tonight. He was called to do a lot of work, particularly in the first 60 minutes. There was a lot of interesting decisions tonight.
Yes, interesting decisions is the word for it. Actually, yeah, let's cover off on the ref early and then move on from it. But I thought early doors, the referee was a bit loose, free and loose at the breakdown. Both sides seem to be getting away with stuff there. And he tightened up at the breakdown as he went on. Not sure it was entirely even in his blowing of that, but I think the Sunwolves perhaps a little bit hard done by on a couple of occasions. And then, yes, the TMO interference or intervention, sorry, rather than interference. I think interference is probably the wrong word. Around the definitions of high tackle and dangerous clear-outs. They evened themselves out, but I thought that Parker's tackle on Geordie Barrett was over the shoulder. It didn't slide up and was fine. And I wasn't that concerned about Ardy Surveyor's. It wasn't a roll, it was a lift. Again, over the shoulder, but not around the neck. So I didn't have any problems with either of those. I thought they're both harsh.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you and say I definitely thought Surveyor's wasn't anything to do with the neck roll, and he felt a bit hard done by there by the penalty given against him. And certainly the Barrett tackle, it was high-ish, but I think even the commentators suggested, why didn't they just let play go on? Though I would have mentioned that there was an incident a few minutes later where Milner Scudder went for a run and a chip and chase, and I thought he was taken out. But they didn't go back to the TMO, and the Sunwolves were awarded the try.
Yeah, the Sunwolves there. Well, I think the commentators said, look, the player took off, and as long as he took off as the kick was being made, then clearly there's nothing else he can do once he's in the air and he's trying to do a charge down. So fair enough. If he took off after the kick, then yeah, probably a check. It's a slight timing issue there around that one, maybe at worst. So yeah, not too. Again, another one that it could have gone either way. But I did see one tweet which was good, and I can't say who it was, and it's something that I've kind of thought about as well. But if you're going to give tackles for that over the shoulder piece, how can anybody legally tackle when someone's diving for the line? There must have been as many so-called illegal, and for those listening to the podcast, I'm air quoting, illegal tackles of players diving for the line that were over the shoulder as the same as that Parker one against Beauden Barrett. So to me, it's a very difficult one there. I don't think it's so. Apparently, if you're diving for the line, you're risking it yourself, but anywhere else on the pitch, you're not. That's considered that's considered an illegal tackle. So that inconsistency, I think quite a lot of us fans find difficult.
Yeah, they got to fix that up, and they got to. And I think fans do get frustrated on either spectrum. To some of the refereeing decisions on 50-50 calls. But having said that, I actually think the referee did a good job tonight overall. And particularly later on, as you'd mentioned, in the breakdowns, there was a lot of hands in the ruck, and he got those decisions right, regardless of who he penalised for that.
I'll say he had an okay game. I wouldn't go as far as good. But yeah, not a bad game. And with that, I think we'll move on. And otherwise, we could spend the next 3 hours here moaning about refereeing, and that's not what we're going to be about. So there was some. We had that first disallowed try. Then the Sunwolves got themselves into the lead. Good ball retention, playing very narrow, bashing it up, managing to impose their physicality on the Canes early doors, and then. One missed tackle by, I think it was Ardy Surveyor, and then number 7 goes over and gets the opening try.
Yeah, that took. Admittedly, I was a bit surprised that how it seemed a bit like there was a bit of early lethargy there from the Hurricanes early on. I know that I've seen a few tweets that said that maybe they were thinking of a training run, which it and there were elements in the first half that the Sunwolves were actually probably the better side in the first half, I thought.
They did well there, but we saw that and that was on 8 minutes, so that showed they had about 5 minutes to get that try, and time to getting points is something I'm going to cover off on in the second half, which is why I'm talking about that. 7 minutes later, Julian Surveyor goes over out wide after being released by Arso, and the forwards doing the work. Julian had a decent game tonight, didn't he?
He played very well, Paul. I thought he was really up there, as was his brother. Actually, both Sevilla boys were huge for the Hurricanes. They got through the grind.
Yeah, I think Julian Sevilla got through the grind and was trying to do things. Again, I think age has caught up with him, so he's not as fast as he used to be. And so there were times when he was sort of looking at wanting Arso there to release Arso because he's just got the better pace. But yeah, Julian used his size, came inside, looked for work, and had a good game. Not an All Blacks game, but a good Super Rugby game.
Yeah, I'd certainly mark him down as being very solid.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Sunwolves, interestingly, for the first try, they got a penalty, long range penalty, and decided to go for the corner. They got another long range penalty and decided to go for the points and took the points. I guess it was a matter of just getting their heads in front again, and they did lead at that point, 10-7, and they managed to lead for quite a while after that, and they managed to have some good ball retention. Looks like, again, threatening the Hurricanes, but not coming away with any extra points or getting any further.
No, and that's where the Hurricanes are very dangerous, and they when you can't put points on them, and they're confident about their defensive structures, when they get the ball and they get half a chance, they'll take advantage of it. And that's what we saw as time went on in that first half.
Yeah, the Sunwolves, around about 24 minutes, we started to see a couple of errors by the Sunwolves. They weren't being quite as clinical. Perhaps they were slightly a bit tired. There were a couple of knock-ons. Quickly, the Canes got the ball, marched down into the Sunwolves half, and really interesting, on the edge of the Sunwolves 22, turned down the penalty and went for the scrum. There's been a bit of a trend this season of going for scrums as it ties all the forwards in and gives you back some space, but it was interesting to do it quite so far out.
Yeah. Well, I think the Hurricanes obviously had the bigger scrum and the bigger forward pack. I mean, so I think they were confident at looking at trying to move that scrum further up the field towards getting another penalty and then going for a short range try off the backs. But I think you'll find, Paul, is that the Hurricanes were going to do things in this game where they felt that they could get the bonus point, which they did, and play more attacking rugby rather than go to the sticks for three.
Oh, I never expected them to go for the sticks, but I thought they would go for the corner. And I thought it was interesting that that rather than go for the corner and the line out, they went for the scrum. And tonight that was the right thing because they lost 4 of their own line outs, so they only had a 66%. So they won 8 out of 12 line outs, whereas they won 6 out of 6 scrums. So yeah, so they were making the right call because their line out was, especially under Riccatelli, his arrows were poor tonight, overthrowing on quite a few occasions.
Yeah, and the Sunwolves got some cheap and easy possession out of that too.
Yep, totally. So we got the try from that scrum. Burden Barrett steps the first player, draws a bunch, releases the scrum half Christie, who on his Hurricanes debut gets himself a try as well. Perfect day for him, really.
He was outstanding today, Paul, for a debut player. Obviously Perinara was rested tonight, was he?
Injured.
Injured. But he played well. He filled in very well in that position, and it's a perfect start on your debut game to score a try on your home ground. And yeah, no,
he did. I don't remember him kicking much when Booth came on. He immediately kicked, so I don't really remember him. So he didn't have much kicking duties. He only took 2 runs. One of those was for the try. So he had a relatively easy day. It was give it to somebody, mainly Bowden Barrett, obviously. So he wasn't asked to do too much complicated work. But then again, you say it's his opening. It's his first ever game. Keep it simple. Let him get used to the pace of the game and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, he did. Within the limited game plan he was asked to play, he played very well.
Yeah, he did.
So he went over. Then the Sunwolves then also had a try disallowed for a forward pass, so that kind of evened things up at that point. And there were 2 great breaks by the Sunwolves and came so close to a try. But basically, what became the story of the second half happened here, in that the Hurricanes held out. What we didn't see in the second half that we did see here was the Canes make a break and nearly go the length of the pitch for themselves. So that was I guess that lack of counter-attack from the Hurricanes in this game was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, but when they did do it, they looked very sharp. I think I would have really liked to have seen a bit more of the counter-attacking game that I thought that they were going to play from the very beginning.
I think the Sunwolves actually had a clever kicking game. They didn't give them much opportunity to counter-attack. They tried to keep ball in hand, and especially as soon as they got in the other half, and just maintain possession. And so I don't think they allowed much counter-attack. They didn't actually turn the ball over that many. I mean, turnovers conceded in this game were 8 and 9, respectively. And considering we've had turnovers of like 18 and 20 in recent weekends, that is respectable at this in Super Rugby. Other forms of rugby might say, actually, hey, that's not that great, but it's the style of rugby that Super Rugby is. You do get quite a few turnovers. So they kept the turnovers down. They looked after the pill very well, and didn't really give those opportunities of counterattacks to the Hurricanes in this one. But they did manage to get themselves another. They kept on turning down the penalties into scrums, and the number 8 peeled off the back and scored a nice easy try to finish the half.
Yeah, I think that, just correct my memory, who was that again?
Oh, I've gone blank. I didn't write down his name. I just wrote down number 8. Bringing up the player stats, that was Princep.
Yes, yeah, that was just a very easy try. I think he just went around the corner, and the Sunwolves defenders, for memory, just were a bit blindsided by that.
Well, they had to put the full 8-man scrum on so the blindside flanker couldn't peel, and it was number 8 versus number 11. And we've already said that the starting wingers for the Sunwolves weren't that big. Big boy against little boy, only a couple of meters out. There was only going to be one result.
Sorry, went blank for a second there.
That's fine.
It was a good try. Good try, boy.
It was, and that finished the half 21-10, which flattering the Hurricanes is perhaps a tad harsh, but showed the strength of the Hurricanes' defence more than the strength of their attack. I think is probably the best way to put it, in the fact that the Sunwolves could easily have come away with more points out of that first half than just the 10.
Well, you're right, because the confidence of the Hurricanes' defensive structure and knowing where and knowing your man and marking your man, and they held up the Sunwolves beautifully.
Did it? Then I must. I missed the try, the first try. The second half, I was I think got back to my seat. I only quickly saw the replay, but it looked like Geordie made a break. Suddenly there was no one in front of him. Got past the first tackler. No one in front of him, and just ran it in.
We ran off a beautiful pass and just steamed ahead to the line. It was beautiful fullback's try, really.
Yeah, and at that point, that sealed the game at 26-10. To be honest, from then on, there was only going to be one winner. You could say actually from the start of the game there was only one winner, but but that really sealed the game for them. We then went through that period of, say, disallowed tries. The Sunwolves had one disallowed for a double movement. It all went a bit messy. The also went over for a try, but that got disallowed for the dangerous clear out, which we've talked about by Artie Surveyor earlier. And that took us up to about 50 minutes. And then basically we ended up with the half hour or sort of 20 minutes of, 20 minutes more than half hour, 20 minutes of Sunwolves dominance. They just sat in the Hurricanes half, and the Hurricanes just defended.
Yeah, and very confidently so in their structure. I think the Sunwolves had something like 11 minutes in the opposition territory for the game. I think about 60% possession for the game. It was almost like a stalemate, that 20 minutes, really. There was the Hurricanes defending their line and the Sunwolves banging at the door. But they certainly, I've got to hand it to the Sunwolves, they certainly retained a lot of the ball and tried to get over the line as best they could.
They did. They bashed away. They maintained the discipline well. They didn't give up any offensive penalties. They didn't turn the ball over. They looked after the pill. And so when there were scrums for held up or whatever, all that the Hurricanes could do was kick the ball out to around about their 22 or maybe the 10-meter line, give the ball back to the Sunwolves and ask them to come back again. And that's basically what happened for 20 minutes. I think the Sunwolves could have varied a bit more. There were times when you could look and go wide now. And they waited one phase or two phases, and then the Hurricanes' defense was there, so they couldn't. They got a bit too predictable, a bit too one-dimensional, a bit too just bashing it up.
Yeah, they didn't play expansive.
They didn't play expansive at all. And which has led to some let's run through some defensive stats from the Hurricanes. And again, for that, also only made 5 tackles. Julian Surveyor didn't have to make any tackles all game. Ben Lamb made 2 tackles. So we're about to talk about a team that made 100 odd tackles, and basically the backs didn't have to do any. Proctor did a few at 9, but Geordie Barrett 1 tackle as well. Then we go into the forwards. Riccatelli 11 tackles. Fatulofa, 14 tackles. Brad Sheaves 12. Princep 11. Artie Surveyor 18 tackles. That's where Tamonga Allen, who came on as a replacement, 8 tackles. Lucy came on as a replacement. Sorry, 9 tackles. Lucy came on as a replacement, 8 tackles. That's where the work was done. It was in the forwards, who and the backs need to buy them a beer or two this evening.
I'm a backs person, so I buying beers for the forwards. But yeah, no, I agree. I think this is the one occasion they can do that. They put in some big shifts, the Hurricanes forwards in defence, that's for sure, in that 20-minute period. Absolutely.
But I was amazed when I looked at that and suddenly went, wow, Julian Surveyor didn't have to make a single tackle all game. That gives you an idea as to how narrow the Sunwolves played. They just, you say they didn't go wide at all. I mean, Julian played the full 80 minutes and didn't have to make a tackle. Now, clearly, if they played me out there, they would have run at me. But hey, even I could defend like that, kind of. So that was, I mean, Geordie Barrett made 1 tackle, missed a tackle. Hey, but again, they didn't have to do much work out there. Whereas it was a much more even spread of tackles amongst amongst Sunwolves, with both sort of with wings getting through like 4 and Tuopu at fullback made 4 tackles, missed 3. So you can see again what we were saying earlier about the width of the play. And then we came into the last 10 minutes, and this is where the score. Well, sorry, finally, the Canes tried to run it out from the scrum because they had no possession. Milner Scudder chips, gets taken out, as you said, legally or illegally. Well, hey, it didn't get blown, so it must have been legal. Chip over, comes back from the Sunwolves, and their winger scampers through, collects it very nicely, and scores a good try in the corner.
Yeah. Without arguing, obviously, the technicalities, I thought it was a penalty to the Hurricanes for taking the man out after the kick. But I thought that chip and chase was fantastic by the Sunwolves player there, and the speed of the bloke to chase down the ball and score the try was fantastic. Unbelievable.
So, yeah, very good try there by Fukuoka, I think it was, who got that try. But it took them 20 minutes of possession, of nearly solid possession, to score that try. And we were talking earlier, it took them 8 minutes to get their first try, whereas we saw that I've gone blank. The Hurricanes managed to score a try within 3 minutes of the restart. They also managed to sort of strike back within several minutes, and then in that last 10 minutes, they scored, or 11 minutes, last 10 minutes, they scored 3 tries and showed you how it's done, basically.
Yes, the dam wall burst. I think the Sunwolves were starting to really tire, and you saw that the Hurricanes were just showed you an attacking masterclass for the last 10 minutes, and put away the ball game that already wrapped up earlier.
So let's now, and this and Arso scored 2. Brad Shields scored the other one after good hands. I think it was either from Julian Severa or Arso to release him. So let's just talk about some of those players. I mean, Fatialofa, we talked about how many tackles he made, but he only made 3 runs for 0 meters. Douglas made no runs. The running was done by the backs, whereas the tackling was done by the forwards. So Geordie Barrett, 10 runs for 99 meters. Julian Surveyor, 9 runs for 96 meters. Proctor, relatively quiet, only 23 meters. Vince Arso, 144 meters for 12 runs. Ben Lamb, who got replaced by Milner Scudder, got through 63. Then you add on Milner Scudder's 19. But yeah, some huge meters by those boys. And as I say, this wasn't about kick returns. This wasn't about, there was the Vince Arso counterattack during the first half, but on the whole, this was attacking moves of the ball going through hands to the players rather than kicking it back or counters into space, which makes it even more impressive, the kind of meters they racked up.
Absolutely. I've got to really give a rap to Geordie Barrett. He's coming of age as a fullback. And he's working the combinations nicely with his brother too. So certainly there'll be some selection headaches for Steve Hansen, particularly if they're looking at Mackenzie as well, in what position he fits at the Chiefs. But I just thought that's typical Hurricanes, isn't it? They just go in there and they play this wonderful attacking rugby that really is exciting to watch. I really enjoy watching them. Almost like a second team now.
And this is what people will be talking about. People will be talking about 3 tries in 10 minutes. What wonderful running rugby. Where in reality, it's the defence that is leading the way in this Hurricanes team. I remember them a couple of rounds ago when listening to all the commentaries going, that the Hurricanes are actually the number 1 ranked defensive team in the tournament. But that's not what we talk about. We talk about all these flashy tries. We talk about all this running, and that's where it all is. So, hence, that's where we've got to say it actually is the Hurricanes are the best defensive side that happen to be able to attack well, which is kind of a weird brain shift for everyone to make. But I think we've got to start thinking of them in that kind of manner. Similar to how we've been thinking about the Highlanders for a long time, which is the Highlanders don't like the ball. The Hurricanes aren't the same. They don't kick it away anywhere near as much as the Highlanders do. But again, they're happy not to have the ball. They're comfortable not having the ball because they know they're going to rack up some points at some point.
Well, it's like the role reversal of 3 years ago, where the Hurricanes were obviously, as they still are, a brilliant attacking side, and they came to the Super Rugby final in the Highlanders. As you'd said, defence wins you the matches, which helps you in your attacking plays later if you can confidently keep people out, which won the Highlanders the Super Rugby title 3 years ago against the best attacking side in the competition. So those sort of things work.
They do.
They don't work.
And we say Vince Arso, 2 disallowed tries, scored 2 tries as well. How can he not be a first choice player for the Hurricanes? I mean, just the first choice back line for the Hurricanes is Bowden Barrett with Lamapi and Proctor in the centres, Ben Lammer on one wing, Julian Severo on the other wing, and Geordie Barrett at fullback. Vince Arso could have scored 4 tries in this game, made over 144 metres off 12 runs, 3 clean breaks, 4 defenders beaten. I mean, leading try scorer equal with Lamapi, I think it was last season. This guy can't even get in the starting 15. It's just crazy.
And to think that Milner Scudder, an All Black himself, is now back from injury as well. So the amount of talent that the Hurricanes have, and Perinara's out with injury. So imagine that back line starting to roll later on in the season as we get to crunch time.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to this.
I think they'll be having training club fight camp to see who gets into the into the important games towards the end of the season.
They're an exciting team to watch. I love watching the Hurricanes.
They are now. Clearly, they want it. We've talked a lot about all their players. Now, Sunwolves, as we've said, great possession, good discipline. They gave a few penalties. They gave more penalties than the Hurricanes, but 4 of those were to their prop, and I think that was basically at scrum time. So Miller got done over a bit there, and Ashihara also gave up a penalty as well. So yeah, their discipline with ball in hand and was good. Both sides got caught out with offsides, but a lot of comments in the chat, a lot of comments by the commentators saying that it's a better Sunwolves team than last season. Do you think that Jamie Joseph is doing a better job with them?
Yes, I think that, and kudos goes also to Tony Brown as well, who is taken with him. I think that even the efforts you've seen against our sides here in Australia have been a lot better. I think that there's a certain responsibility that the Sunwolves take something out of every game this year. And I think we've obviously, we didn't need to learn that the Hurricanes were going to win tonight. That was probably going to happen, which it did. But the Sunwolves are going to take so much out of this game, and this is just a learning year for them. But they'll be right. They're a lot better than I think last year.
So they haven't won a game all season. Can you see them winning a game this season?
Probably against the Reds. That'd make me really, really upset, obviously, being a Reds fan. And I'll end up having next to no hair, which I have none. Anyway, but I think you'll find they'll play some good rugby. They'll certainly try. As for wins, they're not going to probably have too many this year. But the effort, certainly, you can give them a lot of credit for. And I think the structures are all right with Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown there.
So So next weekend they host the Reds up in Japan. So as you say, that's the one you're worried about, and possibly their one chance of, or perhaps the best chance of a win. The following weekend, which I guess the right way around, the following weekend they host the Stormers, but I think that's either in Hong Kong or Singapore. They then go down to Melbourne to play the Rebels, and then pop over to Canberra to play the Brumbies. The Stormers haven't won an away game all season, so potentially there's one there. The Rebels and Brumbies at home, you've got to say, would be a bit of a long shot. Then they go over to Singapore to host the Bulls, and as we said before, the Sunwolves hosting home games in Singapore and Hong Kong, it's just unfair. It's extra travel they don't need, and doesn't allow them to build their home fan base and all those sort of bits. It's just a bit of a joke, isn't it?
To a point, I sort of see the building of the game in Southeast Asia. So I've got to give the Sunwolves a lot of credit that while they're predominantly a Japanese side, that they're also prepared to play at Singapore and Hong Kong as well, which I think is good for the market.
It's good for the market, but I think it's unfair on a expansion team that's going to struggle anyway. Why make why make it even harder for them? Maybe get them to play some of their away games there, and a bit like that the Chiefs, Blues, and now the Highlanders have taken games to the South Pacific. Perhaps some of the South African or Australian sides could have taken some games up into there. But anyway, that's different opinions. But then they finish off with the Waratahs and the away trips to the Waratahs and away trips to the Reds. So it's basically the next two rounds when they're hosting the Reds and hosting the Stormers that they really need to pick up a win. Otherwise, it's difficult to see where the next win's going to come from.
Yeah, I think the Stormers will actually be a very hard task, given that the Stormers play a very mobile game. I think the Reds. I think even the Reds might have a good chance of picking up a couple more wins to their season. So the Sunwolves will take a lot out of their efforts, certainly.
I think they've impressed the New Zealand public with their performance against the Crusaders last weekend, and their doggedness until the last 10 minutes against the Hurricanes. So I think they'll have come away from this tour with a lot more respect than they arrived with, which has got to be good news for them and for the tournament as a whole. But they really need to pick a win in the next two rounds. Otherwise, it could be another lost season for them, even though it is a building season. Floyd in Pink goes, hard to believe the Wolves won't get a win this season. As I say, they're running out of home games. They've only got one more in Japan. Then they've got one in Hong Kong and one in Singapore. So that's my main worry for them, is that lack of home games. Because that's where their best chance of winning it really is.
Could I note, because we've mentioned the Bulls and the Stormers as well, the Bulls and the Stormers only have one more game against the New Zealand conference side. So they're going to actually be, and the Bulls are on a bit of a roll right now. I think the Bulls play probably their last game against a New Zealand side this week. So they're certainly going to start to pick up a few wins in the next few weeks as things go by.
Yeah, they are. Unfortunately for them, though, the Lions had that fantastic win on tour against the Waratahs last weekend, I know that you're not looking forward to it, but the Reds are a much more developing side than the Waratahs are, and so you'd expect that if the Lions could do that to the Waratahs, they should beat the Reds as well. And it's on tour where you'd want the Reds you need the Lions to slip up a bit to allow these teams to catch up. and it doesn't look like, and it looks like they're touring pretty well so far.
Yeah, well, the back-to-back grand finalists and minor premiers from last year. So the Lions are playing they played some hot and cold rugby this year, but I think that the after that performance against the Waratahs, slowly that cold period's come to its end.
Yep. Have to agree. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. Any final comments from yourself?
No, but go the Reds tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll be right.
So yes, so I will be doing live post-match analysis to the Reds versus the Lions, because that's the afternoon game, isn't it?
Yep.
From memory. So join me for that. I'll also be doing live post-match reaction to the Blues versus the Jaguares. Okay. So do join me for that one as well. And then finally, I'm also doing 2 of the Major League Rugby teams in the as well. So Major League Rugby games this weekend. So do have a look. First comment down below on the recording. I'll pin a link to where you can get my live schedule for all of those kind of shows. So Shane, why don't you let people know where they can chat to you during the week?
At SCOOLM8 on Twitter. Come talk rugby.
And obviously, I'm been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. That's on the hat there, obviously. If you're watching a recording, there'll be a face there, but you can just hit the red button down below to subscribe to the channel. There'll be a box there with my latest video as well. So go watch some other great stuff. And obviously, I'm always up for good old rugby chat. So comments down below, or come and see me on Twitter and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching.